Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason. Here are your hosts, Richard Saunders and Stefan Sojka.
Richard, that theme song just delights me every time I hear it for some unknown reason. Welcome to the Skeptic Zone again.
Stefan, I love listening to our theme song. I tell you what, let's all hear it again. No, let's not.
No. Just wait till the end of the show. You'll get a good dose of it later. It's great to be back again. Zone number 6 already.
Number 6 for the 21st of November. Where did the time fly to, Stefan?
And it's almost Christmas and everything. It's just the year just gone by in a cosmic blink of an eye.
And the cosmic click and the blink of a cosmic eye.
So we're in for another huge episode.
What a skeptical feast of skeptical goodies we've got for you today. Kylie Sturgis, our reporter in Western Australia, caught up with Dr Karl Kruszelnicki.
Dr Karl Kruszelnicki. Can you say that again, Richard? Just for those people who don't know the guy's name.
Dr Karl Kruszelnicki. Hi, Dr Karl. You know who we're talking about. A very famous scientist here in Australia.
Dr Karl.
Dr Karl.
Okay.
Everybody knows him as Dr Karl.
Yeah.
Top bloke. He's got a new book out called Science is Golden.
What's do you know the angle on it yet, or we have to wait
Popular
to find
science. He talks about the Large Hadron Collider and things like that.
That's fun. We haven't disappeared into a black hole yet.
Not yet. I don't think.
They haven't started, but didn't they have like a bit of a hold up with the old kick starting it and stuff?
Something like that. They forgot to replace the battery and
that's what plug it in.
But Dr. Karl will tell us all about that in an interview. And
excellent.
A big interview we've got in our regular section, Dr. Rachie Reports with Dr. Rachael Dunlop. She interviews Dr. Steve Novella from The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe.
Oh, wonderful. Well, not only is Steve awesome, but Rachel's even more awesome.
I think so too. Absolutely. And she does a great interview.
And they're a great show too, aren't they? They're like we're kind of aspiring to be like them, aren't we?
We can only aspire to be like The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe.
No, we're snapping at their heels.
Look out.
No, but that'll be great.
That's the feature of today's episode, a great interview of Dr. Steve Novella. Then our think tank today, some of us went to the Mind Body Spirit or Mind Body Wallet Festival.
Yes. You would have had a bit of fun there.
A bit of fun. And afterwards we went to Chinatown to have some dinner and talk about our adventures.
At the Skeptics, the think tank.
For the think tank.
The think tank. Yeah. Oh, isn't that Mind Body Wallet an experience and a half?
It is.
All your chakras just line up. You just get reiki'd. It's just your Kundalini just kind of uncoils and recoils in horror. It's just amazing.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Stefan. For those of you who don't know, this is like every 6 months here in Sydney we have a New Age fair, 3 or 4 days of basically. Open your wallets and repeat after me. Help yourself.
Yes, help thyself. It's awesome. It's amazing. Last time I went there, they had a Walkman that you put on and you blast yourself with music, and that will cure deafness. It was amazing.
I think it creates deafness.
Yeah, well, I cranked up some hardcore death metal, it was fantastic. Didn't do a thing.
In fact, some of our listeners may remember seeing you do that on the old the Tank podcast.
That was a lot of fun. But this time you had another great tour of the whole thing,
and a few people recognised me, which was quite funny.
Oh, did they?
Because I've been on
your little expo on the TV
on TV recently in Australia, and a few people looked at me and said, Mr. Skeptic.
You're that guy.
You're that guy. You're that skeptic.
I'm surprised they let you in. So was there anything really kind of different this year? Is it just the same old stuff? Has someone come up with anything really new, like some phenomenal new metaphysical treatment?
Yeah, they all say that every year. But it's the same old stuff rehashed and given a slightly different label, and away we go again.
Yeah, well, speaking of away we go, I think we should get stuck straight into it.
Why don't we get into the show, Stefan?
Yes.
What a great idea.
Skeptic Zone number 6.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Dr Karl Kruszelnicki is best known as an Australian ambassador for science and science communication. He is the Julius Sumner Miller Fellow at the University of Sydney and holds degrees in mathematics, biomedical engineering, medicine and surgery, and he has also studied some astrophysics, computer science and philosophy. He began his media career in the 1980s with his radio show Great Moments in Science and has since contributed via radio, print, podcasts and even TV shows to our understanding of science. He even won an Ig Nobel Prize in 2002 for his study into belly button fluff. Dr. Karl is now the author of 27 books that investigate science facts and science myths designed for all ages. His most recent book is called Science is Golden. I caught up with Dr Karl as he was doing his Australia-wide tour for the book Science is Golden, and he had a lot to say about his short-lived political career for Climate Change Coalition, religion, the Large Hadron Collider, the return of the TV show Sleek Geeks for 2009, and he even had some advice for budding science communicators. Okay. And here I am at one of the many book signings that Dr Karl is doing for his new book, Science is Golden. And I must admit, as soon as I heard that it was out, I ran out and grabbed a copy. And one of the things that struck me is that, once again, you were getting into scepticism. You mentioned the wonderful Lynn Kelly in your book in regards to light as a feather, stiff as a board.
I admire Lynn Kelly's work. I love her book. She does a wonderful, wonderful job of writing. She's really inspiring. And I like the way that she actually goes out and does the demos in public. And that's a really hard thing to do. Big it up for Dr. Lynn, I say.
Yeah. It was one of the things that was featured in Sleek Geeks, going out and actually doing demos. And you tackled some of the sceptical issues out there, like firewalking, for example. Will we ever have another Sleek Geeks show out there, do you think?
We're negotiating with the ABC right now, and we should have a happy ending shortly. We've got to do it in the early part of 2009, because I'm going down to the Antarctic in about a month. And then in middle of 2009, I'm going on the religious pilgrimage walk, and we'll probably come back able to survive on photosynthesis, surrounded by an ethereal green glow, and no longer needing to eat food thanks to my religious enlightenment. So it has to be done between the Antarctic and before the religious pilgrimage in Spain, the El Camino del Santiago pilgrim walk.
That is incredible. I know that on an earlier Skepticality interview with Mike McRae, you mentioned the division between religion, faith, and science, and how the two of them can coexist together in your mind. In fact, I recall that you mentioned Laurie Peake of the University of Sydney as being a man who has religious faith and yet works in science. Is this perhaps one of your ways of tackling this and demonstrating that the two of them are separate, or do you have another message in regards to this investigation?
In my case, I could be wrong, but I see religion and science as being separate, unlinked, orthogonal, in no way related, in the same way that wearing red shirts and a like of curries are completely unrelated. And for the life of me, in the United States, I cannot see why such a high percentage of the population see a conflict between evolution and the rest of their normal religious belief. Because there's so many people who don't have any problems at all with evolution. Why have they picked on this obscure topic? Why didn't they pick on electrochemistry? Or if you want to pick on something that's a bit counterintuitive and a bit weird, go for quantum physics. Pick on that one rather than than poor old evolution.
Oh, there we go. We just had a massive rush of people who came over and bought dozens of books, mostly women, I noticed. And I imagine your audience has quite a broad range, but there seems to be a lot of mums getting the books for kids. And you mentioned yourself just talking about the books to a few of the buyers, that you have a sort of an age range recommendation, and yet they're applicable to all ages in many ways, aren't they?
In most cases, my books would be suitable for a smart 8-year-old or an average 10-year-old, then all the way up until they drop dead.
And I guess that's pretty useful, considering that you tackle so many recent topics in this new book, such as the Large Hadron Collider, for example. And that's one of the things that people have a lot of concern about and a lot of interest in, but might not know much about. How did you get such complex topics down into such easy, bite-sized pieces?
Each story takes me 20 hours to write.
Wow.
So I have to turn... The way I write is I pick on a topic, then I spend a total of 20 hours gathering together, on average, 50,000 words of material, reading it on a computer screen, mostly from peer-reviewed sources and also books. I then read it, having had a quick scan on a computer screen, I print it all off and then make a pile about 2 centimetres thick. Then I read it, underlying everything once, then I read it again and then summarise it. And then finally, once it's all loaded in my brain, I sit down at the computer and start writing, then referring back to it, and from that I write the original 500-word story, and then later I let it sit in my brain and I expand up to a 700-word story, and then finally I bring it up to about 1,200 words, always trying to keep it as short and succinct as possible. And unfortunately I failed with the Large Hadron Collider. That one expanded to 10,000 words and they chopped it back to about 8.
Wow.
I couldn't help it, because it's just, if you're talking about the structure of matter, it is possible that there are some things you cannot deal with in 500 words.
Yeah. I guess in many ways that's demonstrating a sort of a respect for science, because some things are immensely complicated, and to be able to break it down is a big challenge. Already you just started to mention it there.
Well, when I'm working on TV, they say, look, now summarise this into 15 seconds, and my answer to that is, suppose you've been to a doctor and you've been diagnosed with the cancer of something. Do you want 15 seconds or do you want more?
Yeah. I guess that little challenge that you mentioned there about Margaret Thatcher collecting people, being a one-page winner for explaining... What particular topic was it?
That was for the Higgs boson.
Yes.
So when matter was created, it had no mass. So there's a big bang, everything's too hot, stuff cools down, turns into matter. Matter had no mass, but as it moved through the Higgs field, so goes the current theory, it picked up mass. Different amounts of mass depending on what sort of particle is. The Higgs field itself is quite different from gravity, electromagnetic, electric fields in the sense that it has the same value everywhere through the universe. I find the whole thing very exciting because if we can understand mass, then we can actually remove mass. So to get into space is $20,000 per kilogram. If you can get something like a supertanker and remove its mass, you can get into space very cheaply. And then, if it has no mass, you can get it at the speed of light and get off the nearest stars. And it's very exciting because right now we've just discovered, we've made just now the first actual photographs of 3 stars around the first photograph of 3 planets around another star. And our technology is advancing to the stage that we've discovered 300 planets around other stars. In about 4 years, we'll get to the stage of finding Earth-sized planets. At the moment, the smallest we can go for is about 5 or 7 times Earth-size. And then, another 4 years after that, say 8 years from now, we'll be able to discover Earth-sized planets in the habitable zone around stars. But we've got no way of getting there with our current technology. And I'm hoping that being able to manipulate mass will get us to the nearest stars and even the more distant ones.
Speaking of gathering mass, we have more fans around you, so I better have another break. Here we go.
Here we go. Hello, next person, come on down. Hello, you're next. And who will make this out to?
Well, this has just been a non-stop people coming past and signing. Just on observation, I noticed that many of them were women, but the women were primarily buying it for husbands or their children, I guess, sort of pointing out that science communication is sort of starting at home. I liked the point that one lady made about how listening to your show on the radio prompted a conversation between herself and her son, and how now she felt more in control, certainly in terms of communicating some of the ideas because of how you have supported her, I guess, by doing that sort of program, and how now she's got a book which says your mum's always right, signed by you.
Well, I do try to make the kids show respect for their mums, and I see my role as sticking to the facts and ignoring opinions. And that's how I do what I do, and the philosophy behind what I do is to try to liberate people from what holds them back. And in general, lies may occasionally help you get through life better, but in the vast majority of cases, you're better off sticking to the truth.
I don't know if this is much of a segue, but we recently had the US elections, and I know that Obama has now become the president over there. And one of the things that people have been saying is that he seems to be a very pro-science president. And I know that your own efforts in politics included the Climate Change Coalition. Now you're giggling.
Yeah, that was funny.
Why was it funny?
Well, I got fewer votes in the Barking Mad Shooters Party, but slightly more than the Barking Mad Fishers Party. So at 40,000 votes, I now know my position in federal politics, which is totally irrelevant.
Oh, but still, we need people who are for truth in politics, I must admit. Would you consider running again, perhaps, one of these days? Or?
It's not impossible, but it depends upon the circumstances. Like, you don't really know the results of what you do. Have you read Richard Nixon's autobiography?
No. Which particular...
Well, in his autobiography, he describes how the war in Vietnam is going badly, and as far as he's concerned, he has made the decision, which automatically will happen because he's the Commander-in-Chief of the Forces of America. He has made the decision to drop nuclear weapons on North Vietnam. And then there's a big, absolutely enormous peace demonstration in New York, and everybody from the peace demonstration goes home sad because they think nothing happened, nothing changed. But he saw that peace demonstration, he was so moved by it that he decided that he would not drop nuclear weapons on Vietnam. So in the same way, with me standing for politics, with other people doing what they do, with you doing what you're doing, you don't really know at the time what effects you have, but if you try to stick to the truth and avoid opinions, you're probably doing something that can withstand the test of time. That's a good thing to do.
So would you have any advice for new science communicators out there? You've mentioned in the past how new media, such as this podcast, The Skeptic Zone, is a part of that. How does one get started? Should we keep on battling, as it were?
Okay, advice. Number one, never have sex with anybody who has more problems than you do. The sex is great, but you pay for it. Number two, avoid opinions. Stick to the facts. Number three, it's amazing how lucky you get if you work hard. Number four, inspiration doesn't come out of anywhere, you just sort of have to keep working at it. So that's saying that you get incredibly lucky if you work hard. Any more advice? Never play cards with anybody called Doc.
Okay.
You'll lose.
Yeah, I've learnt that in Las Vegas with magicians, actually.
Oh, yes. Advice number 5, don't play cards seriously with people who are magicians. You'll lose every time.
Yeah, cool. I'll remember to tell that to James Randy next time I see him. Cool.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Hi there.
Here we go.
Now, who are members out to?
Well, I've come here today to the Newtown Festival here in Sydney. It's a giant sort of community festival spread over acres and acres of parkland with hundreds of stalls and people selling all sorts of things, and thousands of people milling around. And I've bumped into Ian Bryce from the Australian Skeptics and the Secular Party. Hello, Ian.
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. Now, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you're doing here today?
Yes, here we have a stand, combined effort by the Secular Party of Australia, the political arm, and the Sydney Atheists, which is a bunch of young people very active on the internet and selling T-shirts and giving out bags of lollies to the people who come to visit our stand. We're having a great time.
You've got a good spot here, I see. It's right near one of the many entrances here. And right on the table there's a picture, well, it's not a picture what I'm talking about, it's the Pope. It's the Pope himself, well, an effigy at least.
Yes, indeed, a mannequin. Yes, he used to be a dress dummy, but now he's dressed up like the Pope, and he's got his mitre hat, and he's got his gold telephone, which is linked to a gold antenna on the roof, and he's talking to his invisible friend in the sky. And the people who come by have the opportunity of photographing themselves standing beside the Pope, which doesn't happen every day.
Doesn't happen every day. Have you had many people coming up asking questions? Joining groups to do with that?
Yes, certainly. There's a constant stream of inquiries. A lot of people want to know how to join one of the groups, and some people are supporters, but don't necessarily want to join. They've also got Sydney Atheists have got a competition for a slogan after the very successful bus campaign in London.
Oh yes.
They're looking for a slogan which could be similarly used in Australia. The aim is to promote the idea that one can hold atheists' beliefs without being outside or on the fringe or in some way
or tearing
inferior.
Down society.
That's right.
Or running around committing crimes willy-nilly or something like that.
That's right. Atheists are not necessarily anarchists. In fact, I think quite the opposite. If you're an atheist, you have to justify your belief, at least if you're a sceptical type.
That's right. Now, if people wish to find out more about your secular party, Ian, what can they do?
They can visit our website, www.secular.org.au, or if they're more interested in a bit of entertainment, they can visit my website, worldtruthday.org, which is set up to counter World Youth Day, and there they can read about the exploits of the Popemobile.
And indeed they can see a video of the Popemobile whizzing through the streets of Sydney.
Yes, indeed. And this happened during World Youth Day as a protest against the Pope's activities, and we came to the attention of the police a number of times.
Oh, you're off to court, aren't you?
Yes, off to court on the 1st of December, charged with having a roof ornament likely to distract motorists. And I have to admit it certainly was intended to do that, as are most of the mobile advertising signs.
Exactly right. I've seen some doozies. Well, look, I'll try to get along to support you in court, Ian, but good to see you and good luck with the rest of the day.
Thank you, Richard.
Believe it or not,
Isn't it, Tiff?
I just happened to bump into Tiffany Day. You'll remember Tiffany Day from our last episode from the Macquarie Skeptics. Hello, Tiffany.
Hi, Richard. How you going?
Now you're getting to be a regular on the show.
Yes, it seems so. Seems that way.
So you've come out here today to support the atheist side of the tent.
Yes, the Sydney Atheists website, sydneyatheist.org, and I'm here to help out handing out flyers.
That's fantastic with your Religion Kills International Health Warning T-shirt on.
Like the cigarette packet warning label.
Right. Well, you look very, very nice standing next to the Pope here, I must say.
Yes, he's on the phone to God at the moment, so try not to disturb him.
Great to see you again, Tiffany.
Thanks, Richard. Good to see you.
And this is a strange thing here I've come across. It's a gong. It's standing up. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, what's your name?
Fleur.
Hello, Fleur. Now, why are you here today?
Oh, just here with the atheists to hit the gong.
Yeah, this is great, everybody. There's a sort of a stand here, a metal stand with a golden brass gong and a handle, and it says underneath, hit the gong if you don't believe in gods, plural. So...
An angel died.
An angel? Oh, sorry, I just killed an angel, apparently. Well, if I don't get struck by lightning or thunder in the next couple of minutes, I'll be doing okay.
Yes, exactly.
AstronomyCast takes a facts-based journey through the cosmos as it offers listeners weekly discussions on astronomical topics ranging from planets to cosmology. Hosted by Fraser Kane of Universe Today and myself, Dr. Pamela Gay of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, this show brings the questions of an avid astronomy lover directly to an astronomer. Together, Fraser and I explore what is known and being discovered about the universe around us. Join us each week as we take a facts-based journey through the cosmos at astronomycast.com.
Now it's time for Dr. Rachie Reports with Dr. Rachael Dunlop.
Steve Novella is a clinical neurologist and academic at Yale University School of Medicine. He is the co-founder and president of the New England Skeptical Society, the associate editor of the Journal of the Scientific Review of Alternative Medicine, and a contributing editor to Quackwatch, which is a consumer advocacy website dealing with all types of health fraud. Steve also writes the monthly column Weird Science for the New Haven Advocate. But of course, most of you would know him best as the host of The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, which is one of the most popular skeptical podcasts in the world and currently has about 40,000 listeners each week. There's also a companion podcast called Skeptic's Guide 5x5. And on top of this, Steve has several blogs, some of which he contributes to. His own is Neurologica. He also contributes to Science-Based Medicine and Skeptic Blog, which is the blog of the Skeptologists. So welcome to the Skeptic Zone, Steve.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you guys.
Well, based on what I've just summarised about what you do, let me start by asking you, how do you find the time?
It certainly is a lot of work. I mean, there's no way around that. You know, writing a daily blog and producing 2 podcasts in addition to that medical career thing I got going as a sideline.
Yeah, that's right. That's just a part-time thing, right?
Right, it's just part-time. But, you know, part of it is the beauty of computers. You know, I always, or pretty much always have access to at least my laptop, so I can make productive time whenever possible. But also, in all honesty, what I do is not very different than my academic colleagues. You know, you have a pretty much 9 to 5 either clinical or research schedule, and then nights and weekends you spend doing your academic writing or research or editing a book or something. But
Sure.
I just choose to funnel my academic time primarily into promoting science education and science understanding.
Sure.
So I'm not really any busier than my average academic colleague, to be honest with you.
Well, actually, Steve, we've got some breaking news to tell our listeners in the Southern Hemisphere, haven't we? We at the Skeptic Zone are very excited to announce that just a few hours ago, you and the rest of SGU announced that you're finally coming to Australia. Yay!
We are definitely planning on coming to Australia in 2010. Richard was kind enough, Richard Saunders, to invite us down, and we jumped at the chance.
That's fantastic news. And that's going to be for the 2010 Australian Skeptics National Convention in Sydney.
Yeah, we are really, really looking forward to it.
Well, the whole team's going to come, is that right?
Yes, the whole SGU team
Fantastic.
is going to stand for being left behind. So we're going to bring everybody.
That's going to be very exciting. We look forward to that. Now, one of my bugbears, Steve, and I think this is certainly one of yours as well, I don't know if you'd call it a bugbear, but it's alternative medicine, which is also known as CAM, and woo, as some people call it. And, of course, you've done a lot to educate people about some of the dangers of alternative medicine through all your blogs and the websites that you have. But one of the things you mentioned to me recently was that there are not many doctors out there who are doing this. And I, like you, tend to go to psychic shows and wellbeing festivals, and I sat through almost every episode of the filming of The One, which, as you know, Richard Saunders was the skeptical judge on. And
that's right.
Yeah, and it was for education and research. But what I wanted to ask you was, why do you think more doctors and science professionals don't get out there and do this stuff and make a fuss?
Yeah, there's a curious lack of outrage amongst rank-and-file academics and physicians as to what's happening. And I speak quite a bit to other physicians about this issue. Those, I think, those who see what's going on for what it is, which, to briefly summarize what I think the alternative medicine or CAM movement is about, it's basically an attack on the scientific basis of the standard of care. It's an attempt to create a double standard, to carve out this separate standard where science and good science is not the standard of care.
Yes.
In essence, so that anything can go, because obviously, if you either are a true believer or a proponent of a treatment modality that does not meet the rigorous standards of science, or you're a charlatan or a fraud who wants to make money off of a treatment that doesn't meet ethical or scientific standards, then you'd like to have this carved out special exception for you where you can pursue your trade without having to do things like research or have a basic science support your notions. So, and a lot of it also is an attempt to insert spirituality or faith into medicine.
Sure, yeah.
As well, a lot of these belief systems are basically religions. So that's what's happening, and yet I think just most of my colleagues don't understand that. They don't really see that, and part of the reason is because the CAM proponents have become very expert over the decades at couching what they're doing in very appealing terminology. They are masters of the language. In fact, the entire notion of complementary and alternative medicine, or integrative medicine is another term that's being used, is an attempt to control the language. It's saying it's an alternative. Well, it's an alternative to what? To science-based medicine?
Or that
it's complementary or integrated. In other words, you can integrate medicine that is based on science and we know is safe and effective with treatments that don't work, or that for which we don't know if they're safe and effective. It's contradictory. It's kind of like saying, well, we can integrate intelligent design and evolution education. It's like, no, you can't teach students legitimate science and then confuse them with a bastardization of science at the same time. There's just certain things just can't be integrated together. So they've done a really good job at controlling the language. They've couched what they're doing in terms of things like a holistic medicine. They say we want to treat the whole person, mind, body, spirit. It sounds really good superficially, but it's really all just a hand-waving distraction from the only issue that really matters, and that is getting away from science as the standard for healthcare. So it's part of it is just confusion as to what's actually going on. The other part of it is this sort of misguided political correctness or notion of democracy, fairness, or even academic freedom. In the U.S. especially, that those kind of themes play really, really well. And I hear that a lot, from my colleagues, when I say, well, why aren't you outraged about this? It's like, oh, we're just being, fair and open, and we're not going to repress somebody else's ability to pursue what they believe in or claim they want,
Which is dangerous, isn't it? Because a lot of this stuff is dangerous in the sense that some of these practitioners will tell you to stop taking your conventional therapy and start taking theirs. And in that case, you're putting people's lives at risk potentially. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the most obvious direct harm, is diverting treatment away from treatments that are effective. There's a guy selling his supplements in Africa for AIDS, telling his clients, stop taking your antiretroviral drugs, take my herbs instead.
Yeah.
Directly telling them not to take the conventional medicine. So that happens a lot. Sometimes even when it's not intentional, it's just diverting people's energy, time, and attention away from more effective treatments. Sometimes patients can't afford their prescription medications or their conventional treatment and the alternative treatment, and therefore they have to choose between the two. And, often they'll choose the one that's offering the most hope, even though it's a false hope.
That's true,
There's many other kinds of harm, though, too, while we're talking about that. I mean, obviously, sometimes there's direct harm, direct physical harm from the treatment itself. Not all of these treatments are safe.
That's true.
Chelation therapy has resulted in death, even a young child who's being treated with chelation therapy for autism, which is not an indicated treatment.
Right.
This is based upon the mercury poisoning notion, which is false. There's other harm, if you inculcate a bizarre or anti-scientific notions of health and disease. There's lots of downstream harm from that. There's financial harm, and there's tremendous psychological harm. And I see that myself. Patients invest a great deal of emotion and and hope in what turns out to be a false hope, and then it's like rubbing salt in the wounds. They have oftentimes a desperate, even maybe terminal illness, and then someone comes along, takes a huge chunk of money from them, wastes their time and energy with false hope for a period of time. Then they have that second letdown when it kind of dawns on them that I've been hoodwinked. On top of having a horrible illness, now I'm a victim of fraud.
Well,
it's a double whammy.
I actually have a friend in Australia who's currently undergoing chemotherapy, and she's got very virulent cancer. She's very sick. She's not long for this world. And of course she's desperate and she's vulnerable, and she recently fell victim to hair analysis. And these people have told her that, she can't eat tomatoes and she can eat macadamia nuts but not peanuts. And this woman is tragically going to die soon, and now her whole life is focused around, well, I can't have a glass of wine because the hair analysis people said I shouldn't. And it's really compromising the last days that she's got left.
That's an extremely good point, and I see that as well. I deal with often terminal neurological illness such as ALS or motor neuron disease. Oftentimes for some patients, all we could really do for them if it's an incurable illness is try to make their remaining time as long, productive and high quality as we can, and that has value. If you have a couple of years to live, you want to spend that with your family or your loved ones and be as active as you can and functional as you can be.
And let's face it, you want to have a glass of wine, don't you?
Yeah, right. But that last time is taken away from them while they're pursuing, these false hopes. I mean, I've had patients go to China to get fake stem cell therapy, and they die over there, probably either just of their disease or of complications of this treatment, infections and whatnot. But only after being billed for $30,000-$40,000 for the whole deal, and that's it. Their last year or so of life was stolen from them just so that somebody could make a fast buck.
And that, in your opinion, that's fraudulent behaviour, not deluded behaviour, would you say, from the alternative medicine proponents in that case?
Well, it obviously there's the whole spectrum within the broad umbrella of, again, this sort of fake category of alternative medicine. It's hard to always say for sure with an individual because you can't read mind. How deluded are they versus fraudulent? There are some cases where they have to be committing fraud, like psychic surgery, which is popular in the Philippines.
Sure.
They're pretending to, like psychically put their hands inside somebody and remove tumors or whatever they psychically diagnose. And they're palming chicken parts and then revealing those to the people in order to deceive them. That's a level of deception that requires culpability. That requires a knowledge of what you're doing. That's premeditated.
Yes.
Then you get to the sort of the gray area like these stem cell clinics in China. And, it's certainly by their behavior, I think, it's not so much that they necessarily feel that there's no potential value to what they're doing. I think they just don't care. They have some plausible deniability. They're doing something. They're getting tons of money from desperate, wealthy Westerners, from their point of view.
Yep.
And whether or not it actually works is kind of a secondary concern. So it may not be that they know it's fraudulent so much as they just don't care if it works or not. And then there's definitely, at the other end of the spectrum, there are true believers who this is a religious belief to them, or they're just so confused by the pseudoscience that they really think that it works or what they're doing is legitimate. They're just profoundly confused about the science.
Mm. Well, that sort of leads me on to the next question, which is about the hijacking of scientific terminology by CAM proponents. And recently I attended the Mind, Body, Spirit, or Wallet Festival, as we affectionately call it in Australia.
Right.
And you'd be amazed, Steve, that quantum technology is working in alternative medicine? I don't know if you've heard about this.
Quantum technology is awesome. I mean, you just throw the word quantum of anything, and it's instant pseudoscience.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
It's all about the marketing, which is the one thing that the CAM industry does extremely well. It's all about the marketing, and also they have an advantage in that they're not constrained by things like facts and ethics.
Exactly.
So if you're not so constrained, you can model your marketing purely for psychological impact.
Yes.
And couching, there are certain themes that they follow. One theme is the new gee whiz technology, and this has been going on for a long, long time, ever since science has been sort of institutionalized and in vogue in civilization. So 100 years ago, the cutting edge science-y kind of treatment was radiation. So there were radioactive tonics that people thought were the latest, greatest thing. 100 years before that, it was electromagnetism. So that's where Mesmer, comes in with his animal magnetism that he can use to cure just about anything. And now it's quantum, is Deepak Chopra's quantum healing, for example, or that sort of it's a new way of justifying the vitalistic notions that are thousands of years old, the notion that there's this life energy. So now you just throw quantum in front of it, and you got the quantum life energy. But it's the same sort of spiritual, pre-scientific notions that were weeded out of scientific thinking over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But they're extremely effective marketing.
It's funny, actually, because I had a conversation with a live blood analysis person at the previous Mind, Body, Spirit. Yeah, I liken it, Steve, to someone who would place a whole lot of scientific words and jargon in a hat and just pull them out at random and then pepper their sort of spiel with these scientific words. And so to someone who doesn't have a lot of science education, it sounds kind of like it might be right because it's sciencey and it's, technical. So what you say about the marketing is true. That's what they do.
That's the point, is to befuddle with technobabble, So people have this vague sense that it's sciencey, but they don't understand enough to realize that it doesn't make any sense. Now, I've seen that in product marketing as well, like healthcare products. This one catalog, I can't remember the name of the catalog that we examined at one point. It was had about 100 different pseudoscientific products in their health products. And I remember they had this cloth that had the infrared spectrum woven into the fabric.
Oh, okay.
What does that mean? It was like infrared woven into the fabric. What does that even mean? But it had the word infrared in it. It sounded good. It kind of made it all, again, as you say, all sciencey. But again, that is a deliberate attempt to deceive. That's what that is.
The other thing that they all do, a lot of them have doctor at the front of their names. And I recently was doing some research on this, but I wonder if you know much about how easy it is for a layman or anyone really to find out if someone's doctor is legitimate. Because, there's so many diploma mills around these days. It's not always easy to find out if someone actually does have a PhD.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can search on them on the web and you ask them for the details. If they can't provide you with a legitimate institution that provided their degree, you should be suspicious. I mean, you should put the burden on them to prove that their degree is legitimate, not on you to prove that it's not legitimate. But if they can't provide, a verifiable institution that provided the degree, and then, depending on how important this is to you, you could then follow up with that institution to see, did they really get the degree? Because they could lie about that as well. So, I mean, that vetting could be either a couple of mouse clicks or a phone call away, for anybody, again, depending on, how many layers of deception they're using to hide their trail. But certainly when journalists or whatever, investigators or if I'm writing about an individual, you can find out if their degrees are legitimate or not.
Yeah. It's kind of rubbing salt in the wound for me, for example, because I actually do have a PhD, and you can check on the University of Sydney website, people. It's there. And to see these people just walking around saying, oh, I'm doctor this and I'm doctor that. And in fact, we know of one person who's not only a PhD, but he has a Doctor of Science as well, which I think he awarded himself from his own institution.
Right.
But my point is that...
I just said that's convenient.
It is convenient, isn't it? And in fact, I checked the chronological order of his degrees, and he got the Doctor of Science before he got the PhD, which in academic circles is quite unusual. It's usually the other way around.
The problem is worse in that there are now recognized degrees that enable somebody to call themselves a doctor that have no external validity. For example, again, I'm not sure how many of these translate over to Australia, but in the United States we have doctors of chiropractic, which call themselves doctor when they don't have a medical degree. And also now naturopaths, doctor of naturopathic medicine, which is, naturopathic, quote unquote, doctors. Naturopathy is just a collection of disparate, sometimes mutually exclusive pseudosciences. It's basically anything that's wrong, anything that gets discarded from mainstream or scientific science, they pick up and make and weave into their practice. And it's really, reading their articles and their texts is like reading a fantasy novel. It is just jaw-droppingly incredible that the notions that they come out with, just completely antithetical to just basic biology. Forget about sophisticated medical research or whatnot. They're just violating even basic biology. And they just weave all that into this sort of vaguely thematic natural treatment. But they can go to a college, get a degree in naturopathic medicine. It's recognized in a number of states in the United States, and they're slowly, working their way through state legislatures, getting recognition. Do you have naturopaths in Australia?
Yes, we do, and it is a recognised degree. In fact, it's about 3 years to do a degree in naturopathy. I'm not quite sure what they do for that amount of time. I haven't seen a curriculum structure. I've looked for one, but I haven't found anything. But yeah, we have them, unfortunately.
Right,
but
so that just confuses the public even further. So it now doesn't. How is the public supposed to know if the government or the state licenses somebody and they have a degree? It doesn't necessarily mean anything. So
that's exactly right.
They're not doing their job of protecting the public from fraud, or assuring at least a basic level of legitimacy in healthcare providers. So the public is left to defend for themselves.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what it's like with the FDA, Steve, but our government body here is the Therapeutic Goods Administration, so the TGA, and they actually, you can list a product with them, which then entitles it to go into pharmacies or, drugstores, and the government will give it an official-looking listing number and say it's been approved by the Australian government. But things like, for example, ear candles, you can buy in drugstores here. Homeopathy, you can buy in drugstores. From the perspective of someone from the public, it looks legitimate because the government's approved it, so it must work. And it's being sold in drugstores next to the conventional science-based medicine.
Yeah, that's malfeasance in my opinion. That's just the government completely failing the public. In the United States, we do have the FDA, but we also have in 1994 Congress, again under the auspices of a couple of true believers, passed the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, which removed basically all the things that you're talking about, all sort of supplements and herbs and vitamins and stuff out of FDA control, so that you could market it without having to provide any previous evidence of safety or effectiveness. And they created this sort of new category of health claims called structure-function claims. So in the U.S., there's two worlds. There's diseases, and if you claim to treat a disease, then that's regulated as a drug, and the FDA has purview over that. But you can make these structure-function claims without any oversight or having to provide any evidence to back up your claims, and those are things like it boosts the immune system, or it enhances a positive mood, or well-being, or nutritional support, or detoxifies. You could use all these sort of pseudo health claims, and if you're careful in the wording and in the marketing, you could make the claims you want to make. You just can't mention diseases by name. have to be minimally clever to evade the regulation. And you got to put a disclaimer.
Yes.
These claims have not been reviewed by the FDA. But half the time they don't even do that minimal requirement. The bottom line is, unless you're, fairly savvy about what's going on, to the most of the public at large, the companies are able to make the claims they want to make and easily comport with the very, very deliberately loose regulations. And this has led to an explosion of the supplement industry in this country. Yeah. So now the public is having to wade through tremendous, dubious claims that, when the few that do get investigated almost always turn out to be incorrect or fraudulent, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, we have the same thing here where you can't make claims on the product, but you can say may assist with or may help with. You can't say it cures anything. But the other thing we have here, and I don't know if you have the same, is we have in most of our pharmacies, we have consulting iridologists and naturopaths. And you can go and see them for free and they'll give you some advice.
Not in pharmacies, I haven't seen. Yeah, there's certainly homeopathic remedies and whatnot in pharmacies and in drugstores and supermarkets. And then we have separate, like boutique nutrition stores that's selling vitamins and minerals. And they will often have the iridologist or whoever there. But pharmacies generally don't have these paraprofessionals. They're basically run by pharmacists.
One of the things with people who are not particularly science educated, if they try one of these CAM therapies and they claim it works, they'll say to you, well, it works for me, therefore it works. They have a story, I had an ear infection and I was taking conventional drugs and it didn't help, and then I put an ear candle in my ear and it cleared up, so it worked. And the problem is, how can you even explain to them that that's not the case? Is it even worth trying to explain to these people?
It's worth trying to explain it. I never give up on people ahead of time, but it is very, very, very difficult. And you have to explain some concepts of how we know what we know and how easy it is for people to be deceived by things. Mm-hmm. So what you're talking about is sort of the post hoc ergo propter hoc logical fallacy. I was sick, I took this treatment, I got better, therefore the treatment made me better. Well, you don't know what would have happened if you didn't take the treatment. It's not a controlled situation. There's also the placebo effect, which is a very confusing concept. It's been extremely confused, especially by CAM proponents, as most people think of it as the belief in the treatment leads to a real physiological effect. And that, in fact, is not the case. That the quote-unquote the placebo effect is actually many, many, many different effects. It's everything other than a physiological response to an active treatment. Yes. So that includes a host of psychological factors, misperception, biased memory, confirmation bias, as well as the fact that there's other variables. If you're doing one thing to treat yourself, you're probably doing other things as well that may be helping. There's the need to justify your beliefs or the fact that you've invested in a treatment. There's the hope that you want treatments to work. So there's a lot of factors at work that lead to a subjective sense that the treatments are effective, even when by any objective measure has happened. The disease took the course that it takes anyway, or the function of whatever is being measured did not improve in any way, survival did not improve. But people still say they quote-unquote feel better. And to them, it's very compelling. It's to convince people that even that your own subjective experience is misleading. It takes a certain level of skepticism to really appreciate that. And that's probably the hardest thing that we deal with is, trying to convince people that your own personal experience can actually be deceiving and you can't rely upon it, that we have to trust, these abstract numbers that were generated by a study, not your actual own experience. But history clearly demonstrates that personal experience is worse than worthless. In most cases, it's misleading. Again, you go back to 100 years ago when people were drinking radioactive tonics. Well, they thought they felt better too. They thought that was the greatest thing and that they had more energy and vitality, all the while they were slowly killing themselves.
Yes.
And in fact, if it weren't discovered, if radioactivity were, let's say, it were harmless rather than actually harmful, it probably would still be around today as a tonic. These things never go away entirely. The only reason why, there's in this country, the FDA had to actually step in and ban radioactive tonics. Even as late as the 1940s, people were still believing in it. They had to actually ban it. But, the Hiroshima and sort of the change in cultural ideas about the dangers of radioactivity was really what killed radioactive tonics. But here you have countless people who absolutely believed that it was helping them. So they were totally wrong. They were profoundly, demonstrably wrong. So you have to extrapolate that to yourself and to everybody else. If they can be that wrong, then anybody can be wrong about any subjective experience of their own treatment. But we have this sort of psychological effect where we think we're like immune psychological factors that affect everybody else in the world, that everyone thinks that they're special in that regard. Oh, yeah, other people can be deceived by this, but not me.
Not me.
My experience, no, wrong, you're a human. You got the same brain as everybody else. You could be deceived. We all could be deceived. I could be deceived. It's just human nature.
It's the same concept as people saying, I know there are fraudulent psychics out there, but mine's real. Mine's fine. It's just all the rest of them are fraudulent and doing cold reading, but mine is absolutely spot on, They
right. All those other psychics may be frauds, but not mine.
Not mine, right. Yeah. You mentioned side effects just before, and I recently had an exchange by email with someone about homeopathy, which is one of my favourite camps. And his point was, well, obviously homeopathy is safer because there are no side effects, whereas orthodox conventional medicine has side effects. Now, I'm wondering if you can just explain to the listeners why it is that there are no side effects with homeopathy and what it means when you get side effects with conventional drugs. In other words, it means that you're getting an effect.
Right, yeah, so there's no side effects from homeopathy because there's no effects.
Exactly.
There's no physiological effects. The difference between a beneficial effect and a side effect is really just all context. It's what's the effect that you're trying to get out of an intervention. And in the proper clinical context, some effects are desirable. For example, if you're taking a drug to help you fall asleep at night, it has a sedating effect. That sedating effect is the desired effect of that drug. But if you're taking a drug for pain and you want to be functional at work, a sedating effect is an unwanted side effect.
Yes.
It's just the context of what you're trying to get out of it. And there's also this concept of a therapeutic range, that when we're developing drugs, we're looking for a chemical that will have a dosing range in which we will get a desired effect while undesired effects will be minimal or tolerable, and there won't be, or the chance of any toxic effect is extremely minimal. And there's certain testing that is standard to go through to ensure that there's this safe therapeutic range for treatments. Because anything that has a physiological effect on the body is going to have a host of effects. We're always trying to get the effects more and more specific, but there's no quote unquote silver bullet or magic bullet that has just the precise effect that we want and no other effects. That's just a technological thing. We're just not at that level of technology. And sometimes it's just not possible. The body is a complex, evolved system. So we have, for example, one cell type or receptor type may be evolutionarily closely related to another that serves another purpose in the body. So when you make a drug to interact with one receptor, it's going to have some effect on the other one as well, even though that's not the effect that you're going for. So there may be just some inherent biological limitations on how specific we can get in our effects as well. But homeopathy, you asked about, has no effects or side effects because it's literally nothing. There's no there. Yeah,
it's water or sugar pills.
Yeah, it's water. It's sugar pills. Yeah, it's water placed upon a sugar pill. So one of the concepts of homeopathy is the so-called law of infinitesimals. Mm-hmm. It's not really a law. It's just something that Samuel Hahnemann made up. And that says it hasn't been validated or verified. 200 years of science has not found that it actually exists in nature, that it's describing anything real in the world. It's just this idea that Hahnemann made up a couple hundred years ago, that the more you dilute a substance, the more powerful it becomes. And that sounds counterintuitive because it's not correct. It's not an accurate description of reality.
It defies laws of science,
physics, chemistry, and common sense for a reason. This time, common sense does not always align with reality, but in this case it does. So in fact, it's worse than just the notion that the more you dilute something, the more powerful it becomes. Even though the notion of Avogadro's number was known at the time of Hahnemann, either he personally didn't know about it or didn't think it was relevant to his scheme, that when you dilute past a certain point, there's statistically no active ingredient left, zero, not a single molecule of whatever it is you started out with is left. So there's literally nothing left. There's nothing left behind. Yeah. How that can't possibly have any physiological effect. There's a couple of other sort of magical beliefs woven into homeopathy. One is the law of similars, that like cures leak, and that's just sympathetic magic. That's just plain old superstitious sympathetic. You grind up a rhinoceros horn and take that to enhance male sexuality because the horn looks like an erect penis. Right. That's about the level of logic that we're dealing with. It's just it looks like it, therefore, or it's similar to it, therefore it has some desired effect. And then there's the other component of it is that you have to shake the remedy in between with each dilution like 10 times in each of the 3 planes, and that's just ritual magic. That's just going through some nonsensical ritual. That's it. That's what homeopathy is.
Is the succussion, though, is that to instill the memory of the active ingredient into the water? Because they do talk about the water having a memory, don't they?
Yeah, but that's a very new or recent concept. Hahnemann never wrote or talked about water memory. That is the kind of thing that's a very recent rationalization to try to, again, lend some scientific jargon to this nonsensical notion of homeopathy. And this is the equally absurd notion that water molecules can retain the quote-unquote memory of more complex molecules that were previously diluted in it. But there's no known mechanism of physics or chemistry that can make that happen. Studies that people, homeopaths and others, trying to demonstrate this effect have been unable to do so. Water is a liquid; it's a fluid. And the molecules, even though there may be some transient relationships among the water molecules, they're extremely, extremely fleeting. They certainly will not survive for any long period of time. They wouldn't survive being dissolved on a sugar pill, eaten, absorbed into the bloodstream, and then getting to whatever target in the body where they're having their action. It's really just explaining one bit of nonsense with an even more absurd bit of nonsense. There's zero science to it, but it's not about the science to the homeopaths. No. It's about using nonsensical scientific jargon as plausible cover for the masses. That's what that's about.
Actually, it seems to me that water is the new buzz, Cam. At the recent Mind Body Spirit that I went to, everyone's selling alkaline water these days, or ionized water, and telling you that it will replace minerals in your body and you'll absorb it better. And I tried to point out to one of these people that if you drink alkaline water, it goes into your gut, which is pH 2 approximately, and it's no longer alkaline. They didn't want to hear about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't confuse them with the facts. Come on.
Sorry.
You're right. I mean, that's the whole acid-base thing is ridiculous. I mean, and our bodies have very elaborate, evolved mechanisms to keep the pH of our tissue and our blood in a very, very narrow, optimal range. And you have to drink poison, or really do something extreme physiologically to overwhelm our mechanisms at maintaining our own body pH. So just drinking alkaline water, as you say, first of all, just mixes with the acid in your stomach, and it doesn't have any effect on your body pH. But the water thing that's actually been around for a very long time. The concept of using water as a healing mechanism, that actually goes way back to like just the original spas, where mineral water and then later carbonated water was given as a healthy tonic. And in fact, the soda pop that we drink today essentially evolved out of that tradition of spas and mineral or carbonated water spas. That's why many of the popular drinks have herbal type names like ginger ale, root beer, even Coca-Cola. These are all initially were health tonics. Not beverages. They only became beverages after refrigeration was invented.
And then they tasted better.
Right.
So just to change the subject a little bit, Steve, congratulations on your new president-elect. We're all very happy about that. And it looks like this might be good for science. The Democrats seem to be a bit more science-friendly than the Republicans, and I believe Barack Obama, in one of his speeches, said that he wants to double the funding to the NIH. Is this the case? Do you think it's going to be good for science?
Well, I think it will be better than the last administration. The Bush administration has the one thing that they have done that has really aggravated the scientific community is subvert the integrity of science as a way of informing government. Now, no one thinks that scientists should be running the government or should be setting policy, and even policies that have a lot to do with science are not determined entirely by scientific information itself. You still have to make value judgments, allocate resources, etc. There's lots of other issues that come into play that make it just a political process. But everyone agrees, I think most reasonable people agree that accurate, unbiased science should inform government or policy decisions, and that you shouldn't go backwards, which is, it seems what the Bush administration was trying to do is start with the policy that they want and then try to backfill the science or subvert the science to that ideology or to their policy agenda. And they really significantly downgraded the role that science advisors play in the creation of policy in both the legislative and the executive branch. Actually is happening over the last 8 years. Now, and that was happening at a time obviously when the Republicans were in power, and there were certain specific issues where they didn't like what the science was saying, so they had a separate agenda, like on global warming, for example. So that sort of earned them the reputation. And, as Chris Mooney, in fact, wrote the book, The Republican War on Science, which pretty much says it flat out. That's what they think is going on. Taking a broader view, I don't think that is an issue that is unique to conservatives or to Republicans. I think that all ideologies tend to do that. Certainly both sides of the political spectrum in this country have to varying degrees. Both candidates, McCain and Obama, vowed in their responses to the Science 2008 questions that were posed to them and on the campaign trail, distanced themselves from the Bush policy. They both promised more funding for NASA, more funding for research, more support for science education, restoring the integrity of science. So they both were saying the same kind of thing. So I think that we were going to be moving away from the Bush policy and the Bush sort of way of dealing with science regardless. But it certainly is much more of a significant and clean break by switching to the other political party. And we'll see. Although yesterday I was handed a letter written by Barack Obama to chiropractors in the United States, promising to integrate more chiropractic care into the Veterans Affairs system and into the healthcare system in general. So
that's not good news.
That's not good news. So, and alternative medicine is the one area where pseudoscience has found bipartisan support in this country. They really know how to work both sides of the aisle extremely well. I haven't seen an advantage to one side or the other. It's just you deal with different issues when you're dealing with one side of the. Yep.
You've got Oprah as well, and she's the most powerful person in the country, isn't she? I mean, when she endorses something like Jenny McCarthy, everyone believes it. So.
She certainly is a media powerhouse, and that gives her a tremendous amount of power. So if your book is on Oprah's book club, then it's an instant bestseller. I mean, that's the kind of power that she has. And unfortunately, she has chosen to use that power for evil instead of good.
Yes.
So she has chosen to promote pseudoscience, quackery, and nonsense at every chance she gets. Jenny McCarthy The Secret, Jenny McCarthy, it's all bad. She's done probably more than any other individual to promote, woo and pseudoscience.
And Tom Cruise as well. We can't forgive her for that.
Yeah, that's true. Although I do think that Tom Cruise escapades probably hurt Scientology more than anything else. I mean, anyone who thought maybe Scientology was a little wonky after seeing Tom Cruise was probably convinced of it, removed any doubt. So.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay, Steve, so my final question is a tough one. Is skeptic a dirtier word than atheist? And what do you think will make the concept of being a skeptic more socially acceptable?
In terms of public perception, I think that atheist has a far more, at least in this country, of a negative connotation than skeptic. Mm-hmm. You can, in a lot of situations and contexts, you can call yourself a skeptic, and that may provoke a positive response in some people, a confused or sort of questioning response in others. And, I think a negative response, if it's confused with the word cynic, that's sort of the biggest risk that we run, is that people confuse skepticism with cynicism. And then really only among true believers who have run afoul of the skeptical movement do they actually try to make skeptic into a bad word. But at least in the United States, atheism is definitely, it gets thrown around a lot as a pejorative, as a way of sort of branding a bad person. It probably would be impossible for an open atheist, I would say, to get elected to any kind of national office in this country, at least in the environment. Probably even more difficult than somebody who is openly homosexual, for example.
Wow.
It's bad. It's really bad. So, but our approach to skepticism is what we call scientific skepticism. We're about promoting science and education and critical thinking. We don't deal directly with religious faith. We deal with religion as when it interferes with science, when it intrudes upon science, which they happily do all the time. So it's really not that much of a limitation. But if someone says, I have a personal faith in God, not based upon any evidence or logic or anything, I just reserve it for myself, I say, congratulations, good for you. What can I say about that? There's nothing to say to address that. At best, you're in the realm of philosophy, which I find interesting. It's just not something that we deal with directly. And there is a bit of a split in the skeptical movement, again, on that issue, whether or not we should address faith issue, pure faith issues, as if they were any claim, or do we make this distinction between science or evidence-based claims and personal faith? And we've chosen, for a variety of reasons, mainly because it's what we're interested in, and it's, I think, just where our talents lie, just to focus on the science. And right. I actually try to avoid even the word religion, because it creates a bit of a misconception. We actually do deal with religion when religion intrudes upon science.
Sure.
So creationism is obviously the most obvious example. Yeah, that's a religion-based pseudoscience. We'll absolutely deal with all of the claims and shenanigans of intelligent buffoons and creationists, but we don't deal with faith, because faith by definition is outside the realm of science, as long as you understand what it is and keep it separate from science. So it actually puts that into a much, much smaller box than us. We can deal with really anyone who makes any kind of claim, anything where logic or evidence can be brought to bear. If you remove yourself entirely from any sort of logical or evidentiary basis, and it's just a personal statement of faith, well, that's your freedom to believe whatever you want. We don't really care what people believe. We want them to understand and to think critically. But we don't concern ourselves with what people believe.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Steve. And it
was a lot of fun.
It was great. Well, we've got a little present for you, which is currently on its way, probably on a plane right now. We've sent you the Great Skeptics CD 2, which is the Australian Skeptics Journal, on DVD, searchable CD. We've also sent you a DVD called The Rhyme Keeper, which is 26 original Australian poems, and Richard Saunders' latest DVD, the fold-along origami DVD.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks very much, Steve, and we can't wait to see you in 2010 in Australia. Finally. Very exciting news.
We're all looking forward to it. That will be great.
You're listening to The Skeptic Zone. I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. When I'm not tuned into The Skeptic Zone, I'm recording the Skeptoid podcast, doing what I can to further knowledge by blasting away the widespread pseudosciences that infect popular culture. I've also compiled a 40-minute educational video on critical thinking called Here Be Dragons at herebedragonsmovie.com. I hope you check those out, and I hope you enjoy The Skeptic Zone.
Death from the skies. These are the ways the world will end.
Wow, that sounds pretty dreadful. But it's not! It's fabulous! It's the new book by Dr. Phil Plait, The Bad Astronomer, Death from the Skies, a scientific look at the way the world will end. Yeah, it still sounds a bit grim, doesn't it? No, but it's a fabulous read. I'm about halfway through it, and I want to keep reading it right now. But I better not, as I'm making this announcement. Death from the Skies. You can win a copy of this fabulous book for yourself. We're looking for a funny or interesting caption for one of our T-shirts. Something to do with skepticism, podcasting, something like that. Send your ideas to kylie@skepticzone.tv. And the winner will be announced in our show in 2 weeks' time. That'll be early December. But if you can't wait, run out and buy yourself a copy of
Death from the Skies.
And a new site on the internet, Young Australian Skeptics. Just Google Young Australian Skeptics and see a new site dedicated to young Australian skeptics, with interesting articles, blogs, pogs, frogs and all sorts of other things. Young Australian Skeptics. Well worth a look, especially if you're a young Australian skeptic. I think I'll stop now.
Join us now for Drinking Skeptically in the Think Tank.
Sydney's Chinatown, and I'm here with Philip Peters from the Skeptics Committee. Hello, Philip.
Hi, Richard.
And Rachel Dunlop. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Ricardo.
And we've all just spent a couple of happy hours, or 3 or 4 actually.
Actually, yes.
At the Mind Body Wallet Festival. What did you think of the festival this year, Rachel?
Well, it was the same old woo, just a different day, I guess, wasn't it? Same sort of mishmash of people espousing what you could only really say is bullshit, I guess. We had a couple of fights this year.
We did.
Yeah, of course, it's the usual suspects again. There was live blood analysis once more, and
hair analysis this time.
Lots and lots of hair analysis, which is apparently done using quantum physics.
Quantum physics, a machine that utilises quantum physics to do hair analysis, yes.
Yes, to test for allergies.
Test for allergies,
yeah.
That's right.
It was a pretty impressive machine, wasn't it?
It looked great. It had lights and a dial and everything.
It had, it did. It had a dial that would move depending on whether you were allergic to a compound or not. It had a lights that 3 red LEDs that would glow if you were allergic to something, and over 300 different compounds in little vials that they could use to identify where your allergies lie.
Just extraordinary.
Yeah.
What did you think of it, Philip?
Well, what I thought was different this year, I saw at least 3 vendors there who didn't believe anything around them. They were just there because they were selling either kinetic art or just food, basically.
Yeah.
So
there was some beautiful artwork,
yes.
and wind catchers, swirly things, which is wonderful, and clothes too.
Yes.
One thing I did notice, I don't know, it wasn't such a big thing in May, but there was a lot of this special water this time around.
Yeah, there was at least
I think more than 4. There was in May.
At least 4 magic
water. Yeah.
One water device worked because the water was forced through some sort of magic filter with a crystal.
That's right, yes.
And then that broke up the molecules or something?
Rearranged the molecules.
To re-energise the water.
Yes, re-energise the water. And the next person told us that their filtration system used magnets which converted far infrared to energise the water?
No, she actually said it used magnets and far infrared technology to re-energise the water.
That's when I said to her, you're just making this up, aren't you?
You did say that. Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, can I please have the beef dumpling? Yep. And the pork and prawn dim sum? Yep. And the pork ribs with black bean sauce? Yep. And is it just a stir-fried vegetable?
Yeah, we've got stir-fried vegetable combination and the stir-fried green vegetable.
You're ordering for me too?
Yeah. Do you want a whole meal?
Yeah, we can share 2 or something. Or we could all just dig in, whatever.
Well, because I've ordered 2 lots of dumplings and then the ribs with sweet and sour and then veggies.
That sounds great to me.
And maybe a fried rice, please.
With egg and ham?
Yeah. Egg and ham?
Oh, yes.
Fried rice.
Yeah, lovely.
Are you still recording?
Yeah. Our listeners want to know
what we're having for dinner.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like the stir-fried beef and capsicum with rice, please.
Anyway, so yes, there are lots of different sorts of magical water on, and I try not to lose my temper. I really don't. But towards the end, when the guy was saying, look at this, and I was reading about the consciousness of water, I just said, this is just ridiculous.
But Richard, that's based on the German word for food, which is?
Lebensmittel.
And directly translates as?
Can't remember.
Oh, okay.
I should know, I know German.
But that's what because after he left, he actually showed me the next page of that book.
Yeah.
Where it was talking about, oh my God, I didn't tell you this. It was talking about something called the Oxford Studies, where milk that was analysed biochemically and chemically before pasteurisation showed a different profile after pasteurisation. And this allegedly broke down the consciousness of the milk. And so a calf that was given milk that was not pasteurised was fine, and one that was given milk that was pasteurised died. And this was because the body could no longer interpret the milk. And this guy said to me, and I felt sorry for him. I mean, he's had cancer, and then he recovered, but he correlated that with this alkaline water. And he was a nice old guy who lives on a farm and grows organic veggies. And
I know. But the point is, if some people actually believe what he's saying and start using his wacko method and go off their real medicine, then as nice and deluded as he is doing real harm.
Well, his pamphlet does promise a cure for cancer, so...
Oh, yeah. His talk, which was in the speaker's corner or whatever, was how water can cure incurable diseases. Yeah, so... No, he's...
Did you want caffeine free?
I don't really mind. Do you have it without...
Yes, normal diet.
Normal diet.
Yeah. Suddenly there's money everywhere.
That's your change, right?
Is it?
5?
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, now the next Mind Body Wallet Festival will be in something like May, I guess, in 2009. I'll certainly be here. I hope you guys come along as well.
Yeah, well,
and I hope all our listeners come along too.
Come along and recognise Richard and make faces at him, which happened a little bit today.
A little bit, yeah. Someone came up and said Mr. Skeptic, which is also, which is always an indication.
But it didn't help that you were wearing a TAM 6 t-shirt that says in huge bright yellow letters, I Skeptic. And I was wearing Pegasus earrings. Yeah, we stood out a little bit.
But there were some positive comments.
Yeah.
There were?
Yeah.
Yes,
a gang of people either read my t-shirt or recognised who I was, so that was quite fun. I gave them a Skeptic's card.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, it's a lovely evening here in Chinatown, so I guess we'll look forward to our dinner, which we just ordered.
Yes, we did. Yum. I'm hungry. Because we're wooed out, aren't we?
We're wooed out.
Help me.
Stefan, I just can't describe to you how much I enjoy doing this show.
And the thing for me is, because I only sort of do the beginning and the end, it's just that long wait in between. Because I've got to sit here in the studio while you do all these things all around the place. I've just got to wait just to do the close. But it's great to be back.
I'm glad you waited around. It was a good episode, though.
It was a great episode. Dr. Karl, what a legend he is.
What a legend. And what big news. Hey, what about that big news about the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe people coming out here?
Coming here!
In November 2010. All you listeners out there, look out.
I mean, and it's kind of like the zone is like a vortex. It's just sort of pulling skeptics in from the entire galaxy to Sydney.
Maybe we should call it the Skeptic Black Hole Zone vortex.
Yeah, the skeptic vortex
of knowledge and skepticism.
Yes. Now, but Dr. Karl he's a real legend as far as popularising science. I think he's done a great job for there's a whole generation of kids in Australia that have been raised, because he's been a guest on this sort of cool radio station for so long.
Triple J.
Yeah, there's a whole generation of kids that have kind of been inculcated with sort of scientific concepts and things. I think it's a good thing.
He's a top bloke, and I'm sure we'll have him as a guest again.
Yeah.
Now, our next episode in 2 weeks' time, we've got a very special guest indeed. a very famous researcher into the paranormal, an investigator, Ben Radford from the United States.
Ben Radford? He's very famous, but I haven't quite heard of him. What does he do?
He's very famous in the United States. He's the sort of guy who'll go out in a wetsuit and look for monsters in lakes and things like that. He's
awesome.
that dedicated.
He's out there.
Goes out and looks at haunted houses and does real on-the-spot investigation.
Excellent. That's a bit like you, because you like to get into the old haunted houses and things.
I do,
Yeah, never been scared and never been bumped in the night.
What can I say?
No. Well, that's going to be great. So that's next week, Skeptic Zone number 7.
Number 7 in 2 weeks' time, in fact, and lots of other things that are so good I can't even tell you about.
And once again, can I please thank you on behalf of the Skeptic Zone and all the team here for all the listeners that have been devotedly downloading the podcast each time and giving us lots of good feedback.
Yeah, and thank you to the listeners too. Thank you for the feedback. It's and all the feedback we're getting from Australians writing in saying we really love the show because it's Australian. All the other skeptical podcasts they love too.
Yeah,
great, but they're American, fine. But we're the only real Australian ones.
Yeah, well, it's a big hemisphere down here. We've got a lot to cover, and we're doing our bit.
We're doing our bit. Well, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, Stefan, and we can do our bit all over again.
Looking forward to it. And guess what? Here comes the theme song. Oh, wait for it.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.
The Skeptic Zone, a miracle of technology.